Hello pirates, so we'll be talking about how to build a monolith, but before we go there, let me show you my raid plan, okay? So my raid plan for April is this, my 4 Empyreans and my Zalos tank. This is what I'm gonna use to do the raid. If there's really gonna be an Empyrean flagship available in raid, I'm gonna drop one of these guys, not the guy with the countermeasures, but one of the others. Place the flagship here and keep going. Right? Plan B is actually my citadels, so there's one missing here, with the Tideseeker flag. So that's plan B. Now what I'm gonna be building perhaps for May, because that's when we get elite targets, I'll be building monoliths. I have 3 so far. They're pretty much empty as you can see here. One coaxial mortar because it was the fastest one to build. Speed system 5 and garrison battery. That's what I have on all 3 of them. And I built most of it using the tokens from the TLC. If you do all 4 price packs, you get 14 days. That's what I got. It was 6 days each, so 14 days of tokens plus tokens from FM plus a few days since I started. I got 3 shells, so I plan on having one more and leaving room for the Monolith flagship. We saw in preview that flagship apparently is intended to be a tank based on its statistics and the lack of remote range. It seems the Monolith flagship is the flagship for is actually the tank, I mean, for the Monolith. So I won't need a Zalos or anything like that. But we'll see. So I am making some assumptions here, as I just said, that the Monolith flagship will be the tank. So I'm gonna build 3 of these ships with all mortars and one of them with half countermeasures, half mortars, as I usually do, as I did on my Empyreans here. As you can see, one of them is half countermeasures and has a countermeasure special here, but the other 3 are all mortars, and I even put one of the new mortars here just for fun. Okay, so let's talk about building monoliths now. So here's the basic build. Okay, 1 coaxial mortar. It could be a judgment mortar, but the first ship I'm gonna put together here is assuming you were able to do price pack 1 in the Odyssey TLC. So you got the monolith, but you were not able to do price packs 2 and 3, so no new mortar, no new special. And if you're that type of player, I'm gonna go on a guess here that you didn't get the icebreaker and the garrison battery for 120 million points last raid. Okay, so the second special here naturally would be siege battery 3. Now, if you did get garrison battery, I would recommend that one instead. Okay, but I'll get there. So let's start with siege battery 3. That's the first one. Okay. Now you want something to buff the mortars. So many options here. I'm gonna start with combustion system 2, but you could also use explosive system 4. Okay. These are the 2 basic ones you should be using for a basic build. So let's go combustion system 2, more spread. I like that. Next up, if you're worried that your driving won't be perfect and you may hit some roadblocks and you want to buff the resistance against mines, against being shot, so you could go on a more cautious side and get MX3, bump up your resistances to 87% plus turret. It will help, okay, but considering for now without the flagship this hull doesn't have any deflection, you're still gonna take a pounding. So remember, this is the skill hull. It's the one where if you drive perfect, you don't take damage. But when you mess up, it costs you more than the other hulls on average, right? But I'm gonna assume that we'll be able to drive. I'll be able to drive it okay. So I'm not using MX3. And instead, I would be using next something like Siege Targeting 3, if that's the best you have. Or high velocity rounds for extra building damage and projectile speed. So that would be my favorite option right here. Now with 2 more specials to go, if you only have the basic specials, there are many options here. You could go all of them to increase splash or damage. So you could use 1 or 2 splash upgrades. You could use 1 or 2 explosive upgrades. So I could go explosive upgrade and splash upgrade, or 2 of each. They can be used more than one. So this is a good set of specials if you only have the basics. If you have better than that, you could actually find viscosity regulator. If you're up to date on tier 5 in FM, you have this one. Okay, for better splash. So you can see here the splash now it's at 124%. It's very good. You could also go, if you redeemed that with the Pride a few raids ago, you could double down with narrow firing aperture. Now your splash is up to 178%, which is great. And you only lose 10% spread. You don't want to lose too much spread because the turrets are spreaded across the target. So you want to hit them with splash damage and spread, like projectiles hitting all over. So this is a basic good set of specials. And then if you go down that path, assuming you don't have the new mortars, you could just use all coaxial or all judgments. Really won't make much of a difference, except I think the judgment's the best one, but it takes longer to build and it's heavier. But still, you could do a setup like this. You're not going wrong here, okay? It's still under within weight. And then to finish this basic build, I would just go and add some turning armor. This ship has an acceleration special ability where it gains up to 150% combat speed, but only 50% turn. And being that fast in straight line and not that fast turning, you'd probably be hitting mines. So you might want to consider using D2T armor just to gain turning ability. Let me see if I can fit a third one here. Yep, just barely. So here's the basic setup. 14 days to build. Just building slowly, you would not get a whole fleet before May's raid. But if you got just 2 tokens from pack 1 in the TLC, and if you're getting 2 tokens 4 days a week from tier 4 FM, that's not the best option. You're probably going to get 2 or 3 of those for May, and they might not be ranked. Now, if you did better and you did price pack 2 where you get 10 days of tokens, then you're in a much better position, and that means you have the rest of the gear. So let's take a look at how that would look like. So let's assume now you were able to do price pack 2, and I said you got 2-day tokens from 1. I'm mistaken. You got 2 build tokens from price pack 2, and you get the new special. So the new special is not compatible with high velocity rounds, so you cannot have both of them. So the first thing I'm going to do is replace high velocity rounds with high yield warheads. So this guy's going to add a lot more weight. It's plus 30% weapon weight. It gives you less projectile speed, but a lot more splash and some building damage and wall damage, almost the same as high velocity rounds. So this is the indicated special for the Monolith. As you can see now, we have a big weight issue. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get rid of one of those 2 specials at first. And because narrow firing aperture gives me more splash, I'm keeping it and getting rid of viscosity regulator. If you chose the other way, honestly, it would work all the same. Okay, both cost you 19% extra weapon weight. If you don't want to lose any spread but lose 5% splash, you could keep viscosity regulator and get rid of this one. Here's a coin toss. I don't really have a super favorite. And now we're back within weight. So in this slot here, if I want to recover some of that splash, I would come and pick splash upgrade. If you want more damage, explosive upgrade. Okay, so let me pick this one. And here you go. You have a build with judgments. You could even use this last one here as judgment as well if you wanted. 3 turn armors and high yield warheads. So now you have 200% splash, which is massive. Only 10% less spread. 167 projectile speed is decent. Okay, and over 200% building damage. That also is huge when you consider the judgment has a damage of 6,000, right? You're making that times 3, you're going to 18,000 damage divided by 2 salvos, so it's 9,000 per mortar landing on the ground. Okay, so that's an intermediate build. Pretty simple. You could have viscosity regulator here instead of narrow firing aperture. You cannot have both without giving up on some mortars. Okay, they're just going to be too heavy, and about the same building time. So if you did price pack 3, now that means you got 10 days of build tokens, a lot of VXP, and you got the new mortar. Problem is, even with Shipyard 4, the new mortar is really heavy, and being Legion technology, you don't get much of a discount, if any, on any weight reduction for having Shipyard 4. In this case, the best I could do, even like using lighter specials such as explosive upgrade, splash upgrade, I could only get it to 6 mortars fitting in here. This is where, if you are able to get the garrison battery from last raid, you can recover some weight back. Still not much, and then you could, for instance, put at least 1 gale in here. Don't think you can fit a second one. Oh, you can. Okay, so with Shipyard 4, you're capable of having the 3 T armors, which are optional. That's just my choice to make it easier to drive. 2 gale 1 and 6 mortars. So that's one way of building with lightweight specials. You get 146% splash, more spread, 188% building damage. Okay, and that's not counting the built-in ship and structure DPS this ship has. So that's another option. What I did instead was a bit of a compromise, where I added 1 coaxial firestorm. Let me go back to that. Here. Okay, so now you see it's heavy. Then I added 2 more. And one of the reasons I'm doing that is, even though they do less damage in mortar mode, which you see down there as a secondary weapons mortar type, it gives me 3,678, but reloads every 5 seconds. While the OU, new mortar, reloads every 10. So if you want to compare 3,600, you double that. You're going to be talking about 7,200 damage every 10 seconds. Plus the concussive damage down there, 1,000 if you multiply by 2. So it's pretty much even with the OU mortar when you look at a 10-second period. Okay, so it's more mortar shells in the air in case you have to fight countermeasures. This guy, if you get too close to a target, will start firing like a rocket, which may come in handy so you don't have a blind spot at close range. It also adds armor. Each one of them adds 1,800 armor for just 5-minute repair. So now I'm up to 16 with, which means if I make a mistake and I take some damage, I still have more armor at a very low repair cost, right, to work with. So now, with that setup, I have a lot of weight to spare. And what I was able to do was, keeping the splash upgrade here, add either viscosity regulator or narrow firing aperture. I mean, pick your poison here. Both will work nicely. Okay. And by removing 1 armor, so I lose a little bit of turn, I came down to what I chose to be my final configuration, where I have 4 of the new mortars, 1 tiny countermeasure here, but 1 per ship will hopefully add up when they're needed. 3 coaxial, giving me almost 5,000, around 5,000 extra armor. Okay, and very good splash of 200, very good building damage. Barely any loss in spread. Okay, and a good combo of fast firing mortars, lower firing mortars with higher damage. So hopefully I'm going to build 3 ships like this one. One of them, instead, I'm going to have a countermeasure loader here. So here's my other configuration for the 4th monolith. I add this one. I remove some of the heavy mortars, and I'm going to go countermeasure here. Okay, so let's add 1, 2 flanks 4. Okay, and maybe you want to go heavier if you have Gale 2 or 3 here. You want to go heavier and add. I'm gonna keep. I can keep or sacrifice the armor. That's your choice really, because you're gaining resistance here. So I might give up on the armor. So here you go. I have some Gales, 3, 2 flanks, and just 3 mortars. So that's more of my countermeasure ship. Okay, and because I want to use the tank with a mix of countermeasures and mortars as well. Okay, that's probably how my final setup going to be, but I'm not set on that. So for now, I'm only building the shells, equipping the 3 mortar ships, and I might leave one of them either like this or just half built with 1 special slot empty until April 13th, when we see the final version of the Monolith flagship, hopefully. Then I'll make my call on the final ship. I might just leave it half built for now, as I said, just like this. Okay, so hope this was helpful. Again, this is not a final setup. We kind of tested these specials, these combos last preview. As you know, preview is subject to change, but I'm very confident that this should work well. Okay, so take care everyone. I hope this was helpful. If you liked, please hit like, subscribe to my channel, and share that with your alliance. Take care everyone. See you next time.